Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast brought to you by Chalkboard. I am Mike Barner. He is Kirien Sprecher, and we come to you every Wednesday to give you the information that you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues. Kirien, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Ready to get into these sleepers.
Yes, today's episode is everybody's favorite topic, sleepers. Now, what is a quote-unquote sleeper? Well, a lot of that has changed over the years as fantasy coverage has expanded and everybody has access to so much information, advanced stats and whatnot. So we consider sleepers as players that are being undervalued in drafts. They're being taken, their ADP is too late compared to other players being taken around them. So that is what Kirien and I are bringing to you today. Each got a list here. So Kirien, let's get right into it. Who is your first sleeper to target this season?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has been listening to any of the shows that I've done or reading anything that I've done, everybody knows that I'm very high on Bennedict Mathurin this year. The Indiana Pacers, wing is going around pick 100 in most drafts. He's a little bit higher on underdog, close to like pick 80 in underdog. That's where the sharps are, and so you got to take a good look at that. I think Mathurin can easily be a top 50 guy if he takes advantage of the opportunity in front of him, which would make him a great sleeper this year if you get him at pick 100. Obviously, there's no Tyrese Haliburton this year, tearing his Achilles in Game 7 of the NBA Finals last year. That injury kind of led the Pacers to pushing Miles Turner out the door in free agency. Turner is now with the rival Bucks. Without those two, I'm expecting the Pacers offense to look a lot different this year. Obviously, if you look at Mathurin's numbers last year, when Haliburton missed time or Turner missed time, Mathurin didn't really have a huge spike in numbers. To me, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It just meant that like Haliburton was the key to that offense, and they weren't just going to completely change their offense because Haliburton was hurt. They had McConnell, they had Nembhard that could run that offense. Turner spaced the floor still. It was still a really well-organized offense. With Tyrese going to miss the entire campaign and Turner gone, I'm expecting this Pacers offense to look different. It has to look different. Turner and Haliburton are two of like the most unique players in the NBA. Like Turner's ability to shoot from deep at his size, and Haliburton the way he can run an offense. Without those, they're just going to have to make changes. Andrew Nembhard is a good guard, but he's never really had to be a take 20 to 25 shots kind of guy, right? TJ McConnell, the cockroach, as Uncle Ken likes to say, is a great guard, but he's not like a go-to. Like he's better in spurts than he is like, hey, play 35 minutes being our lead point guard. Pascal Siakam is still there, but someone needs to take a huge leap, and I think Mathurin just has the biggest upside. If you want evidence of that upside, just look at Game 7 of the NBA Finals last year. 24 points, 6 for 14 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, 10 for 10 from the free throw line, 13 boards, 3 assists, and 2 steals in 33 minutes against that Thunder team, which is arguably one of the best teams of the past decade. So Mathurin, the talent is there. Now the opportunity is there. He's always acted like an alpha. He's always had an alpha mindset. Now he finally can be that guy.
I couldn't agree with you more here on Mathurin. I think this will be his first career season where he averages at least 20 points a game. Exactly like you said, the offense is going to be built differently as opposed to just expecting Mathurin to pick up when someone's out with an injury. So I am all in with you on Bennedict Mathurin. Now, last season, I was going through my notes from last season. The 3 guys I gave out last year in this episode were Josh Hart, ding, ding, Norm Powell, ding, and Brandon Podziemski. Yeah, that was okay. So who am I going to this year? Well, Norm Powell is back on the list. How can we not? Norm Powell is our guy. His ADP right now, cumulative, is around 100. Lack of scoring around him. 2 seasons ago, he had a 20% usage rate, but last year on the Clippers, that increased to 26.1% because of their lack of scoring options. Now, he also averaged 33 minutes a game last season, highest of his career. That left him with averages of 21.8 points, just over 3 rebounds, just over 2 assists, 1.2 steals, and what we love, 3 3-pointers a game. Now, he's not just a chucker, too. He does it in an efficient fashion. Shot 47.1% from the field last year, 83% from the free throw line. Now he's on a Heat team that has Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, and that's it. Oh, and guess what? Tyler Hero is going to miss at least the first month of the season. So we've got Bam Adebayo, extremely talented player, not a usage rate guy. And we've got Andrew Wiggins, who sometimes shows up for the game and sometimes does not. You don't know what kind of effort you're going to get from him on a nightly basis. You know what you're going to get from Norm Powell. The guy is not afraid to shoot. He is an aggressive scorer. He has averaged at least 30 minutes a game 3 times in his career in a season. In each of those 3 seasons, he averaged at least 18.6 points and 2.4 3-pointers. He's got a clear path to well over 30 minutes a game, hefty usage rate. Again, Norm Powell. Put him on the list, Kirien.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with this hero injury. You're even seeing Miami kind of, attempt to play at a faster pace during the preseason. If that continues into the regular season, that just means more shots and more buckets for Norm Powell. I'm all in on the train. We talked about it last year, obviously, after he kind of broke out. But anytime a broadcast would talk about Norm Powell and his scoring outburst, it would be like the greatest scoring increases around the league. This 22-year-old, this 21-year-old, and then Norm Powell, dude. What he's doing at this age is incredible, and there's no reason to expect that to decline in Miami, where he should seemingly have even more usage.
That's right. Now, who's your next sleeper, Kirien?
So I'm going to the Western Conference, another team where there's a lot of injuries early in the season, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. And I'm looking at the front court. Santi Aldama, he finished as a top 115 8 category option last season. Not stellar, but a quality fantasy option in 8 category leagues. And it was because he posted career highs. He only played 25 minutes a game, mostly as a reserve, but he averaged nearly 13 points, 6.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 stocks, and 1.8 made 3-pointers. He had a very secure designed role. He came off the bench and he scored. Anytime you would watch a Grizzlies game and Aldama would come in, it was seeming like, why not give this guy 30 minutes? The offense ran through him when he was on the court because he has a unique skill set where he can make those 3-point shots. 48% from the field, 37% from deep, close to 70% from the free throw line. For a stretch 4, you'd like that free throw percentage to be a lot higher, especially in category leagues, but he's not getting into the rack and getting into the charity stripe a lot. So it's not like that percentage drops you, and it's better than a lot of the other centers that you're going to get. Like I said, Aldama has a clear role on this team, and so that kind of gives him a high floor, in my opinion. Even if Jaren Jackson, Zach Edey, Brandon Clark come back this season, it sounds like Zach Edey and Brandon Clark are for sure not going to be ready by opening night. Jaren Jackson may be ready by opening night. Even when all of those guys are together and healthy, I think Aldama is a top 100 option. However, at least two of those guys aren't going to be ready. So I think Aldama's value skyrockets early in the season. He's going to start, even if Jackson's healthy, Aldama might start at the 4. He's going to get a lot of run at the 5 without Edey and Clark. You look at Desmond Bane leaving this team, that's a lot of shot attempts that are gone. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, was the what they got in return. He's more of a floor spacer, a gadget piece. He's not going to be give KCP the ball and let him go get a bucket. This team needs offense, and Aldama gives them offense. I think he's going to be a huge part of what they do early in the season. And John Morant has an ankle injury and is week to week too. I expect Morant and Jaren Jackson to be available, which would make Aldama like the 3rd offensive option on this team come opening night. But there's an opportunity where Aldama is the number 1 guy on opening night. And if we could get him at pick 125, I think he has a top 100 floor and then a top 75, 70 ceiling if he does take advantage of this opportunity with so many injuries in Memphis.
I couldn't agree with you more here on Aldama. Like you said, the injuries have piled up already in Memphis. Brandon Clark has not shown that he can stay on the floor. So even when Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. return, you figure at a minimum, they're going to need Aldama to play minutes at the 4 and the 5. John Morant is also not a picture of health. You mentioned KCP is kind of the corpse out there. Just want him to play defense and maybe jack up some corner threes. So I am fully on board with Aldama there, especially that late. Now, my second guy, I'm going to go with another player that I talked about a lot towards the end of last season, and that's Isaiah Collier of the Utah Jazz, who has a cumulative ADP of 138 right now. Now, last season was a tale of 2 roles for Collier. He played 25 games off the bench. In those games, putrid averaged 3.4 points, 3.6 assists, and shot 32.7% from the field. However, over 45 starts, he averaged 11.5 points, 4.1 rebounds, 7.8 assists, and most importantly, shot 44.5% from the field. That is a huge increase in his efficiency compared to when he was on the bench. Now we've got Jordan Clarkson gone, Colin Sexton gone. Keontae George is still in the mix, but I think Collier here has a path to a starting role. ADP, again, like I said, 138. It's not that often that you can find a player who can give you that many assists so late in the draft. I don't like the Jazz's guard depth. I think Collier is silly season proof, so he's going to play even if the Jazz are tanking again down the stretch. So I liked him last year when he took over his starting job. I like him again this year right from the onset.
Yeah, I agree here. Just a couple notes. Collier is a little banged up with a hamstring injury during the preseason. I don't think that's going to impact his regular season availability, but I just thought that was worth mentioning. And my biggest thing with Collier over Keontae George, Walter Clayton, whoever else thinks that they can run the point in Utah is, like you said, his passing ability. Ace Bailey, Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, for that matter, like Bryce Sensabaugh. Walker Kessler isn't a shooter, but he's a play finisher, right? Like you throw lobs to him and he finishes the play. Bryce Sensabaugh, Lauri Markkanen, Ace Bailey, those guys are play finishers. Isaiah Collier is a playmaker, right? Keontae George is not he makes plays for himself. Collier is the best option to make everybody else on this team better. And I think that's what, Will Hardy's going to lean on for sure. So I think even though there's a little bit of competition, it gives Utah the best chance to win, and I think he'll carve out that role. And like you said, when he's in that starting role, the assists are huge at that spot in drafts for sure.
Now, Kirien, hold on.
Go ahead.
Before you move on to your next two sleepers, we need to hear a word from our good friends at Chalkboard. Cash in on your NBA picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold, hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines and get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports, now available in 30-plus states. Download Chalkboard today and use promo code ROTONBA, that's ROTONBA, to get $20 free with no deposit required. And thank you again to Chalkboard for sponsoring the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball podcast. Kirien, let's get back into it. Who is your next sleeper for this upcoming season?
Apologize for Chalkboard for jumping the gun there. Apologize for that. So I'm sticking in the backcourt, but I'm moving back to the Eastern Conference. VJ Edgecombe, rookie for the Philadelphia 76ers. Great start to the preseason, doing a little bit of everything. I just love this kid's mindset. And I know I said before the show that we weren't going to talk about Pinky P and Joel Embiid today, but look, you can't trust anybody in this Philadelphia 76ers organization that has been there previously. I'll add that addendum in there. But look, Jared McCain's not going to be ready. Paul George might not be ready. Joel Embiid might not be ready. This team, Kelly Oubre is on the trading block. This team has so many question marks, and I just think they need a complete, organizational switch. And VJ Edgecombe could be that guy. This guy is no nonsense. Obviously, like early in Paul George's career, that Pacers team was incredible, but he is, sitting back and counting his money at this point in his career. They need someone. Tyrese Maxey is a great player, but he's not like a franchise altering player. He hasn't taken that mantle from Joel Embiid, which is kind of hard to do because Joel Embiid, when he's healthy, it looks like an MVP candidate. But you can't rely on any of that. So I'm going. I think even if everybody's healthy, Edgecombe's going to play a role on this team because he's a great defender. He's a great rebounder. He has the winning mentality. But I think you can project. You shouldn't project injuries, but Philadelphia is a different situation. I'm projecting a lot of injuries, a lot of absences. You look at Quentin Grimes. Even there's been so much valuable fantasy production that has come out of the grave from Philadelphia when everybody's injured, and I think it's this year. It's Edgecombe. I think in Dynasty, he's top 10 guy. Right, like top 10, like in terms of like projecting out like 5-10 years, like top next 3 years, maybe not top 10 guy, but I think VJ Edgecombe is going to be this Philadelphia 76ers franchise player in the next 5 years. I think this year is where they finally are like, hey, we have someone else. We're going to have to move on from Joel Embiid. For fantasy purposes, you want these all around kind of guys, and Edgecombe's rebounding ability for a guard. You talked about Josh Hart being your big sleeper last year. If VJ Edgecombe can be efficient around the rim and grab boards, he's going to be a stellar fantasy player as a rookie and beyond.
Yeah, his upside is certainly off the charts there. And like we've said, we can't trust any of those. We're going to be doing a do not drafts episode next week. We have already said that Joel Embiid and Paul George are unable to be picked because we talk about them too much. But for this Edgecombe discussion, you can never trust when those guys are going to be on the floor. So yeah, I do like his path to minutes and a role early on in his career. I am also going to stay in the Eastern Conference, and I am going to go with Sam Hauser of the Boston Celtics, who has an ADP of 150. That's pretty late here in drafts. We're going to see a very different Boston Celtics team this season. Jason Tatum could miss the entire season as he recovers from a torn Achilles. They traded Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Al Horford is now on the Warriors. So here are the power forward and center options on the Celtics. We've got Hauser. We've got Chris Boucher. We've got Keita. We've got Luka Garza and Xavier Tillman. Yuck, that's disgusting. Now, Hauser averaged 22 minutes in both of the last 2 seasons. That helped him average at least 2.33 pointers, and he shot at least 44.6% from the field. Not only do I think he's going to play around 30 minutes a game this season, but I think his usage rate could go way up. I could see averages here for Hauser between 13 and 15 points a game, 3+ three-pointers, chips in maybe 4 or 5 rebounds a game. Of my late targets, Hauser might be my favorite.
Mike, I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the show, but I went to high school with Sam Hauser. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. No, I did not.
Sam Hauser
is a high school guy.
I was a junior and he was a freshman. So I taught him everything he knows, obviously.
Oh, no, watching you put in the work in the gym, right? That's how he learned his work ethic from.
Sam was one of the most mature kids I've ever met. Not a surprise that he has reached the heights that he has. Just an incredible, fantastic in school, straight A student, one of the best teammates, came in, was a leader right away. Dude is absolutely incredible. I think, the Celtics gave him that extension because he was a huge part of that offense. Obviously, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, all these guys, like, they ran that offense. But when Hauser came in, that offense, the potential just went through the roof because he was making threes at a ridiculous rate and he was getting wide open ones because of the guys on his team. They easily could have moved on from Sam Hauser this year. Like they moved on from KP, like they moved on from Drew Holiday. Sam is making a lot of money on a team that probably, isn't expecting to reach the NBA Finals this year. They very easily could have moved on from him and gone full rebuild. They didn't. I think they want him to have a huge year this year. I'm not saying Sam Hauser is going to, become Jason Tatum or anything, but he's just going to be really, really good in this role, and he's just going to get more shot attempts and more makes, especially in category leagues. If you're building a 3-point team, you have to go out and get Sam Hauser this year. Even if he's not starting consistently, when he comes in, the offense there's going to be plays run for him to get threes, and you can't really say that often about a guy you're drafting that far down in your drafts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, pick 150 for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if he becomes the top 100, top 110 player, it's a home run for you. So the investment capital is low.
And like Sam is a sharpshooter. That's what he does. But if he couldn't play defense, he wouldn't be in the NBA right now, right? Like
Yeah.
he can move the ball. He's a good connector. He makes the extra pass. Like I said, like the upside is a little bit limited, but if he becomes a top 100, he's going to be a regular starter on your fantasy team, and that constitute as a sleeper for sure. So going from a great sleeper candidate to maybe not really a sleeper candidate, but we have to
wait, hold on. Is this the Bulls minute, Kirien? Is it time for the Bulls minute?
Absolutely. We had to throw him. We had to get somebody in there somewhere. Matas Buzelis, forward from the Bulls, second-year forward from the Bulls. What he's doing in the preseason is just an extension of how he ended last year. Such an efficient scorer at the end of his rookie season, which is just unheard of. Making three-pointers at a really high rate, attacking the basket, getting boards, playmaking for others. We'll see how the free throw percentage comes along in category leagues, but with the way this Bulls team is set up with Josh Giddey at the helm, this is going to be a high octane offense. There's going to be a lot of guys flying around, and Buzelis is going to reap the benefits of that as a young guy who has an all-around skill set. He is the future of the Bulls, even though they just gave this big contract to Josh Giddey. They're hoping that Buzelis evolves into this alpha dog. We have a question from James Chan. He said, which round should I target Buzelis in a 14-team, 14-cat roto league? That's 14 categories. That's a lot of categories. I'm sure there's like double doubles and triple doubles or something mixed in there. Yeah. So right now Buzelis's ADP is around 100, a little bit higher on underdog like Mathurin. So 14 team, if you want to secure him, you probably have to go, 7th or 8th round, which isn't bad depending on how many starters you have. I have no issues locking Matas Buzelis into a starting spot in any fantasy league. Obviously, points league, he gets a huge boost because of the lack of shooting percentage hurting him, or lack of free throw percentage hurting him. But yeah, it depends on who you're drafting with. If you're drafting with a couple of Bulls fans, you probably got to go in 7th round or 8th round. But definitely if you wait until the 10th or 9th round, you're probably not going to get him, James. And I think, like I said, go out and make him a priority in all of your leagues. This is a guy where you're going to be kicking yourself and you'll be like, I knew, I knew he was good, but I didn't expect this type of production. That's what the kind of season we're going to get out of Matas Buzelis this year. You look at his season-long averages from last year and you're like, Kirien, this guy, he averaged 10 points per game throughout the season. Just go and look at the second half of that season. Normally when rookies fall off, he hit his peak, and he's just continuing that into the preseason and regular season preseason. Like that's what you want. Like obviously the preseason doesn't mean much, but if he has a bad game, the narrative is going to be the other way. He looks like a guy that's just ready to take care of business, and in fantasy, especially, you want young guys that are on the come up, and Buzelis is that guy. Get him before it's too late and everybody's talking about him.
I am fine with taking him in a 12-team league. Okay, I am fine taking him in the 7th round. I think he is a top 75 player this season. They are putting the vast majority of their eggs in the Buzelis basket. They clearly want to move on from Vucevic. We've already seen them move on from Zach LaVine. And that's another thing you were talking about, Buzelis' overall season's numbers. Well, one, he wasn't playing much at the beginning of the season. And two, he had Zach LaVine on his team in the beginning of the season. And Zach LaVine, shots. Buzelis is the centerpiece that the Bulls are building around right now. Patrick Williams is a non-factor now, okay? Even with his contract, he's done.
Patrick Williams didn't play until the second quarter of a preseason game. There were 10 Bulls players that got action before Patrick Williams got action.
I think Isaac Okoro is going to start at small forward. That is how bad Patrick Williams is. Isaac Okoro, okay, is going to start over Patrick Williams. So I think Patrick Williams, don't think about his contract. Don't think about his draft pedigree. He is a non-factor when it comes to playing time for Buzelis. I could not be more on board with Buzelis. He is a very trendy sleeper. So if you're dealing with If you're in a league where it's savvy fantasy players, he could be a top 75 pick. Okay. He could be taken in that 70 range. If you're in an office league or you're drafted in your family with Uncle Bob and Aunt Janet, they don't know. Okay. You might be able to get him in the 8th or 9th round. But if he's someone that you want, do not be afraid to take him 7th round. That's around pick 80. If you really want him and you're at the end of the 6th round, take him because you might not get another chance.
Your point about Zach LaVine was fantastic. So when is the trade deadline? February. From February 4th to April 11th, basically when the Bulls moved on from Zach LaVine, Matas Buzelis averaged 14 points, 4.5 boards, 2 assists, 1.7 stocks, and where's the 3-point? 2 3-pointers, 48% from the field, 36% from deep, 80% from the free throw line. That is a budding superstar.
Rest your case. And for my final sleeper, I'm going to go real deep. ADP 168. Ryan Kalkbrenner, center for the Charlotte Hornets. Have you seen the depth chart on the Charlotte Hornets? They traded away Mark Williams. So their starting center is likely Moussa Diabate. Now, Eric Collins, our favorite NBA broadcaster, loves himself some Moussa Diabate. Okay, that guy is all energy, and he did play well in some spot starts last season, but he is better served. He's a non-threat offensively. He is better served to come off the bench. Who else is at center for the Hornets? Mason Plumlee. Yes, Mason Plumlee is still in the league, and yes, he might steal 10 minutes or so a game, but I don't think he's someone that the Hornets are going to lean on heavily. I think Kalkbrenner is their guy long-term. In their preseason opener, he played 25 minutes off the bench. He had 11 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. In 3 of the last 4 seasons in college, he averaged at least 2.6 blocks. You know, we also have the potential for the Hornets to be out of it as the stretch run comes, which would lead to even more playing time for Kalkbrenner. Again, the ADP here is 168. He has very high blocks upside. So with your last pick, I implore you, draft Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think he's going to end up having fantasy value on the Hornets this season.
Mason Plumlee wasn't even at training camp for a while, and then the first preseason game, he wasn't on the injury report. He wasn't on the inactive list. He didn't play. I don't even know if he was on the bench. So Mason Plumlee is on this team currently, on the roster at least, but I don't know if he's going to play. Moussa Diabate is a fun, energy piece. Kalkbrenner has a very unique skill set that's tailored to fantasy, and I think this Charlotte Hornets team is going to be good. If, LaMelo and Brandon Miller have had their injury histories, but I think Con Knipple is a fantastic player. I think he could be a great third option. If this team is good and Kalkbrenner is launching, 35-footers like Kristaps Porzingis, like he could be a very, very good fantasy option. So I love the shot in the dark there, especially at the center position where you don't really see those skill sets very often.
Now, that's a wrap for our sleepers. Next week, we're going to do players to avoid and players that could be bust. So be ready for that. It's almost time for the favorite segment in all of the podcasting world. So here's your time to call Uncle Bob and Aunt Janet into the room for the What Was That Stat Lines of the Week. But before we do that, Kirien, got a few questions here. Let's answer in the chat.
All right, yeah. So James has another one about Alex Sarr. Is he worth a 6th round pick? I would assume that's the same 14-team league. So take that into account a little bit. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, I don't mind it. He does obviously have that unique skill sets with the 3-pointers and the blocks. His efficiency can be a problem, but he did play better in the second half of the season than he did early on for the Hornets. They're clearly still a rebuilding team. It's an oddly constructed roster with the CJ McCollum in there, so they could look very different after the trade deadline. But I think he's got a large enough role and enough upside. If you wanted to take him, if you're in a 12-team league and you take him somewhere around the 7th round, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, my thing here is he is a little banged up. He has a calf injury, and he's not that efficient for a center position. Like we just talked about Buzelis that you could probably get around later. Buzelis is more efficient in every category. Obviously, maybe the blocks aren't quite as much as Sarr's is, but Buzelis still has the blocks and threes repertoire. So I would definitely go Buzelis over Sarr, and just monitor that calf injury. I love Sarr as a player, but you just got to be aware if you're building a category team around his skill set, in my opinion. I hope that also answered your question. Khalil Ware, similar to Sarr, in my opinion. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think where he intrigues me more, simply because he does so much in so little minutes last year.
Yeah.
Even in the preseason game, the only thing that concerns me is in the preseason he's coming off the bench, and they've been starting Jaime Hawkins.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a concern. Last year, we saw Ware get inserted into the rotation, the starting lineup. He did have some bumps in the road. It wasn't all great. But, I mean, if he plays around 25 minutes a game, there's no reason why he can't average 10 points, 8 rebounds, and a block and a half. I am a little worried about Hawkins. I do think there's a chance that he starts. I don't know if the two big lineup of Ware and Adebayo works great. Did you like it last season? I don't know how great it works.
Yeah, so it was just like interesting with the way Miami was after the post Butler trade. Like it just felt like they were, anything would have been positive, right? So like while like there were some positives, so I feel like people are like, oh, it works, but like, does it work to like be a playoff team? Probably not. My biggest difference with Ware is, you mentioned Jaquez, Nikola Jovic is also like moved into the starting lineup.
Yes.
So if they're playing this faster paced offense, like we talked about with Norman Powell, if they're lean into that fast paced offense, that's not good for Ware. Ware is a way more efficient player than Sarr is, obviously, because of the lack of 3-pointers. So just thought I'd throw that in there. But yeah, I all three, Ware, Buzelis, and Sarr, are all very intriguing players. But especially with Sarr and Ware, you have to be, those guys aren't like plug and play on any category team. You have to know the build you're going with if you're going to go with those guys.
Agreed. Let's do this last one from Killian's Manila, Kirien.
All right. How about Keontae George? I wonder if he was a follower from last season.
I teed that up for you, Kirien. You have the floor.
When I was on the Keontae George hype train, look, I love the idea of Keontae George. I love the idea of Keontae George. I love watching him play. You get, the Dame Lillard vibes. But it just hasn't come to fruition, Manila. I'm sorry. It's time to move on. We talked about Collier earlier. There's so many shot or play finishers on this Utah Jazz team. Ace Bailey coming in, Lauri Markkanen, Bryce Sensabaugh being healthy. They need a playmaker. Keontae George makes plays for himself. Isaiah Collier makes plays for other. Isaiah Collier is the guard that you're going to want to roster in Utah this year.
Quickly, Kirien, before we do the what was that stat lines of the week, let's do this question from John Doe. Remain anonymous here. Maybe he's supposed to be working right now, and instead he's listening to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. You can call your boss in. It's almost time for the what was that stat lines of the week. But go ahead, Kirien. Let's finish up here.
So rating these centers, Mitch Robb, Isaiah Jackson, and Kalkbrenner. I think this is a very interesting question. It kind of depends on what league you're in, obviously, and how deep it is. Mike just talked about Kalkbrenner. We both love him as a high upside option. Isaiah Jackson's healthy. Torn Achilles last year and was ready for the first preseason game this year. That's a huge surprise to me. If Isaiah Jackson is healthy, he's going to be the starting center for the Pacers. Mitch Robb looks like he's going to start, but you got Josh Hart. You got a really deep bench in New York this year, so you might not get 20 minutes. I would probably go Jackson, Robinson, Kalkbrenner, but I will throw the caveat in that Kalkbrenner probably has the highest upside of all three.
Cosign. Jackson, Robinson, Kalkbrenner is the same. I guess maybe here it's what kind of build are you doing? Are you trying to hit on blocks late in the draft? If you're trying to hit on blocks late, then maybe Kalkbrenner is the guy you go. But if you're looking for I think Jackson has a higher floor and a clearer path to more minutes. So again, thank you everyone for your questions. And without further ado, it's time for the what was that stat lines of the week. Kirien, you are up first, my friend.
All right, so sticking with the center theme here, our guy DeAndre Ayton dominating. he's in LA. He's ready to turn a new leaf and become, a championship winning center again. Got off to a really hot start against the Suns. 2 shots, 1 point, 18 minutes against his former team. That's not going to get it done. You're expecting to come in. Obviously, look, this team is going to look so much different when Luka and LeBron are running the offense, giving Ayton open looks. But that's just not what you want from a guy that you went out and targeted during the offseason. With a guy with the nickname Dominatin, you should be dominating. You shouldn't be taking 2 shots in a preseason game. It's the preseason. Go out and get some buckets, throw up some shots, do something, make these fans entertained, energize them a little bit. The Los Angeles Lakers fan base was in a tizzy on Twitter after this performance, and so I had to bring it out of the show.
Yeah, I don't think Ayton is going to be the guy that gives extra effort in a game that means nothing. I think we can probably count on that at this point in his career. If the game means nothing, Ayton can match that with nothing. So I do like him during the regular season.
At least he made it to the arena that night.
That's true. They probably had someone driving there just to ensure that he got there. So for my what was that stat lines of the week, I'm going to try not to butcher this. I did watch a YouTube video to try and get the pronunciation correct. So there was a preseason game between the San Antonio Spurs and the Kaohsiung Long Lions, which is a Chinese basketball team. On the Lions roster was, sit down, Frank Kaminsky, Justin Holiday, and Victor Oladipo. These guys went nuts. Kaminsky hit 5 3-pointers. He scored 22 points in the game. Oladipo scored 20 points. However, it was on a very Victor Oladipo-like 8 for 19 from the field. Not exactly efficient. Those 2 guys took 34 of the team's 77 shots. We've got some chuckers. Now, the Spurs won by 31 points. But Kirien, if you are drafting your Chinese Basketball Association team, how high are you taking Frank Kaminsky and Victor Oladipo? Are you taking them early first? Are you taking them on the wheel if you have the 12th pick? These guys are going to light it up.
Yeah, absolutely. This was, just one of those funny examples where just the most talented players, well, I shouldn't say that. The most talented players are in the NBA, but there's a lot of talented guys that are not on NBA rosters. We saw it with Buzelis last year, getting back into the NBA rotation. Victor Oladipo looked like he was going to retire. Frank Kaminsky has been a journeyman bouncing around the league. There's so much hoops talent out there, and it was really cool to see that on full display, especially as a Wisconsin Badgers alumni who, his first year in college was the second Final Four run with Frank and Sam Decker. So really happy for Frank, and Oladipo is a Big Ten guy too that had a rough time. So happy for those two. What a funny outing, and it's just. I just think whenever I see those types of things, like those guys on that team are just chomping at the bit. And then this NBA team's like, oh, we got to play these guys. This is preseason. We're just going through hell during training camp. Sports at its finest right there in that one.
We need to get Russ Westbrook on that team and just make them the super team of the Chinese basketball. So maybe they can get Mason Plumlee. Yeah, get Plumlee in there. James Johnson can come in. You throw some elbows, get some dunk. He probably scored 20. Put James Johnson on that team.
I love it.
That is the end of today's RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. We want to thank Chalkboard for sponsoring the podcast. We want to thank all of you for your questions and for listening. And don't forget, for 15% off any RotoWire subscription, you want to use promo code YouTube15. Next week, Kirien and I will talk about guys that you should not draft. Beware. Stay away from them like the plague. So next week, we got some busts on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. But until then, good luck with your drafts, and may all your players stay healthy heading into the season.
Don't draft 76ers.
Amen.